Last year during the Thanksgiving break, I decided to wake up early one morning and try and catch a sunrise. I don't normally do stuff like this, but I just felt like it would be a cool opportunity to try and go out early one morning and just enjoy nature for a little bit. I brought my film camera with me, my Contax G1, and when I was out there, I realized something kind of interesting. When did I learn and find the confidence to just go out one morning and shoot on 35mm film? It feels like yesterday. I was just fumbling around with this old camera that my dad had given me and loading up some Walmart film to just see what the heck this film thing was about. Throughout the years, I've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs when shooting on film. Overall, I just feel like I've learned quite a bit, and that's the hope for this video, is to share those experiences that I've had to save you from a little bit of the pain that I've experienced along the way. So that's what this video is going to be about. 5 things that I feel like I could boil down into essential tips for your first roll of 35mm film. Tip number 1, know your camera type. In my opinion, I think it's easiest to just sort of boil down 35mm cameras into 3 simple categories: point and shoot, SLR, and rangefinders. Point and shoots are great if you're not really looking to get too much out of the film shooting experience. You're more results oriented and driven. Say you're trying to shoot pictures of your family, your friends, your travel trips. You just want to get that film vibe without having to mess around with a ton of settings and making sure your shots are in focus. You just kind of want a camera that's going to do a lot of the work for you and give you that film vibe that you're going for. SLRs are that perfect middle ground kind of camera. You can be a professional shooting with an SLR and you could be a beginner. However, it just gives you a bit more control over image making. What makes shooting on an SLR great is that you can change lenses if you want to. You can have right at your fingertips all of the different settings that you need to understand in order to compose and expose an image properly. And I think the reason why these cameras are probably the most popular for first-time film shooters is that the viewfinder really indicates what the shot is going to look like. Not necessarily in terms of exposure, but in focus and in composition. You can actually really frame up your image as well and get an understanding of what's at stake when you're taking these shots. And the third and final category are rangefinders. Rangefinders are very similar in some ways to the SLR experience. However, they're much smaller profile. They usually also have interchangeable lenses as well. But now the appeal of that style has sort of kept up. And it's just important to know that it's a different, maybe in some ways a bit more complicated of a setup for first-time shooters. So with all that information, what the heck do I choose? I think it's very simple. Again, if you're just the kind of person that wants to go out, get some quick shots, you don't care about the settings and the focus and all that stuff, you just want to point and shoot, get a point and shoot camera. If you're already a photographer or you want to become one and you're actually serious about, learning the settings and exposure and composition and all that stuff, I think an SLR is a no-brainer. There are tons of different resources to figure out how on earth you're going to choose a film camera. I'd first recommend going to a local camera store. They still exist, and I do this quite often. Just talk to the shop owner or somebody working the counter and see if they have any recommendations for a good SLR camera. Doing this allows you to ensure that what you buy is actually working and in good quality. And of course, you can always shop online like Facebook Marketplace or eBay, which is where I usually get my cameras, to just find something that looks high quality, looks like it's functioning right, and suits all of your different needs. Tip number 2, choosing the right film. Unfortunately, you can't just get any roll of film and expect it to do well in all different types of situations. It's important to know the type and the speed of the film that you're shooting before you go out and actually load it and shoot it. The first type of film is color film. You'll know it's color film because it'll probably say color film on the box, or if you're buying online, just make sure you type in color film. There are 3 main brands for color film that I'd recommend: CineStill, Kodak, and Fujifilm. Next, you have some black and white film. I'd recommend maybe Ilford HP5 or Kodak Tri-X. Those are 2 pretty popular black and white films. Of course, you can do your own research and figure out what kinds of film you like. We've talked about type, but now let's talk about speed. When I say speed, I'm talking about the ISO value, or how sensitive the film is to light. If you're coming from a digital background, this is not anything new to you. ISO is, again, how sensitive your sensor is to the light. The higher or the more sensitive the actual number is, the brighter the image gets. With film, it works pretty similarly. So if you buy a roll of Portra 400, it's recommending you shoot it at ISO 400. Same with 800, Fujifilm 1600, you get the point. In a nutshell, those are really the 2 factors that you need to consider when choosing your film: what type of film you're shooting on and how sensitive it is to light. Tip number 3, loading your film properly. Depending on what kind of camera you get, say a point and shoot or an SLR or even a rangefinder, the ways in which you load your film usually aren't too different, unless you're shooting Leica. Then to that, I salute you. So first, you're gonna open up the camera back. If you have no idea how to do this, just look it up on the internet. I'm sure somebody has a tutorial for you. Once it's open, you're going to push it in on the open side where it looks like a giant film canister should go. You're gonna grab a little bit of the film on the front. This is called the leader. Yes, you can touch it. Yes, you can expose it to light. These are not gonna hold any images. You're gonna drag it across the film back. Normally you stick it through a small slit in what's called the take-up spool. On this one, you just slide the film right through this little slit, and then you make sure the sprocket holes line up with the little grabbers on that little take-up spool. You'll know that it's working correctly when you grab the winder and you crank it. If you crank it and the film starts to pull, you know that you've loaded it correctly. All you have to do now is close the film back, use the winder, and fire the shutter a few times. After doing this, it ensures that the rest of the leader has been pulled through the camera and you've got fresh film ready to shoot. Tip number 4, getting your exposure right. Unlike shooting on a digital camera, film is a little less forgiving. This is single-handedly probably the biggest thing that I wish I knew before shooting my first roll of film. Always, always, always err on the side of overexposure, not underexposure. You can usually walk your images back, or the lab that you send them to can. Very rarely can you walk it up and try and pull the shadows out. It never looks good, and it always makes an image just look gross. So this is my plea: don't underexpose. Trust me. So how do you do this? How do you make sure that you're not underexposing your image? Well, you use what's called a light meter. On most cameras these days, you've probably seen this, and you've maybe not even recognized that it's there. Unfortunately, if you have an older film camera, there's a chance that either your light meter is unreliable or it doesn't work. It very well could, but I'd still recommend using an external light meter if you can. The best one that I've found to use outside of buying one is just downloading an app. There's a great app called My Lightmeter. I'll leave a link to it in the description, that I've been using for the past couple years, and I have gotten some very good results with it. So let me give you a little bit of a rundown on how to actually use it. Just like we were talking about earlier with box speeds, the first setting that you need to adjust in this app is to tell the light meter what ISO you're shooting at. Maybe you're shooting at 200 or 400. It's important to tell the light meter this so it can give you the settings you need to shoot. Once you have the ISO selected, you simply point the light meter at the scene and tap this button. Basically, you want to set your aperture and your shutter speed to the 2 numbers that it's indicating. This will inform you that you're going to be shooting an exposed image for what you just metered for. So, tip number 5, what do I do now? Well, now that you've got all these things together, it's time, to bake the cake, as it were. Go take some photos. This is going to be different for everybody. Take photos of the things that you like. Take photos of the things that you hate. You know, go out with friends, go out with family, go out with other people who are interested in photography. Just take some pictures. Go look for areas where there's light. Go find some things that are interesting that draw your eye. Go find some cool photography books at a library or bookstore and just see what makes some of these images so special to you. Because at the end of the day, this experience is not about everyone else. It's about you. When you shoot on film, yes, you're going to get filmic colors, you're going to get phenomenal dynamic range, you're going to get some really cool grain in your picture, great. But at the end of the day, it's about what's in here, bro, not what's in here, if that makes sense. I know that wasn't probably super helpful, but now that you have all of these basics down, you can kind of go into taking photos with a little bit less pressure to get it right. When you've got the settings and the sort of tactical, technical things down, the creative stuff's out there, man, and you just gotta go try it. I hope there was something in this video that was encouraging to you or gave you a little bit more of a push to get out there and try shooting on film for the first time if you haven't already. If you like this video and you're interested in more videos related to filmmaking or photography, consider subscribing. We do a lot of stuff on this channel related to both of those things. And with that, that is all that I have for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.